When getting into watches, it's easy to get overwhelmed and make mistakes in the process as you're in those early stages. I know for myself, I was guilty of this and made a lot of just mistakes along the road. So what I wanted to do is revisit a topic that I certainly have covered in the past many years ago, looking at beginner watch buying mistakes and refreshing it for just kind of a new perspective that I have in 2022, and just to give some further information and ideas as you're maybe beginning your watch buying journey. Now, I've looked at other just kind of concepts of this nature in the past, looking at things I wish I knew before building a collection, which was more about like a philosophy around collecting and what is kind of the thought process you should have when starting to amass a collection. This is going to be more into the alignment of what are some common misconceptions, mistakes that a lot of new buyers make when looking to purchase a watch. Now, before we jump into this video, check out the pre-owned section on teddybaldassarre.com. Getting plenty new watches in every single week on our pre-owned section. We have some great deals on there from a variety of different brands, different price segments. It's a great place to go if you're looking for your first pre-owned watch or just looking to get a solid entry door into many watch brands at a really solid price. Check it out, teddybaldassarre.com. And if you're also looking to sell your watch, definitely keep us in mind. You can fill out the sell form on the sell page of the website. And if it's a good fit for our program, one of my colleagues will be in touch. So now for this first one, we have unrealistic expectations of accuracy. So when you're first getting into watches, you're coming into a world that is dealing with technology and types of an art form that is not going to necessarily appeal to the greatest modern innovations. So when you come in, you have this preconceived idea of, okay, this is my life with my smartphone. I know the exact time. You're looking at getting a mechanical watch, you see the price, and you're like, okay, I can expect this thing to be fairly accurate, which is a reasonable assumption. I find most people don't know what could be deemed as acceptable when it comes to ranges of deviation for accuracy. Let's look at an entry-level option with Miyota. So their Miyota 8 series movements, these are very popular, found in many watches under $500. Range of deviation on here is -20 to +40 seconds a day. And even with a Swiss-made standard grade at a 2824, you're looking at ±12 seconds a day up to ±30 seconds a day. So a lot of people, what I find is they'll say, hey, this watch is running 30 seconds fast a day, and they may have an entry-level Miyota movement or a Seiko movement. And the reality is there's nothing wrong with that movement. That is kind of the realities. And I think this is more the case when you're getting into those affordable watches and you're just expecting this amazing performance out of the box, which in most cases is just not going to happen. Or at least you have to all keep it, just relatively speaking, into context. These affordable watches are just going to be mass produced. They're not going to have the same level of accuracy. And really, at the end of the day, I think mechanical watches, accuracy shouldn't be the number one thing you're going for. Now, some people might disagree with me on that, but if accuracy really matters to you, I would look for those type of certifications from COSC, master chronometer certifications, any internal testing standards that are quoted by a manufacturer, if that really is important to you. But for me, I don't mind if a watch is, say, even 20 to 30 seconds off a day from perfect time. I'm perfectly okay with that. But you really have to kind of set this expectation for yourself, because I see it quite a bit now also being an AD. People are just like, oh, this watch is running not the greatest. It's a faulty watch, or it's defective when it's running, say, 25 seconds fast a day and it's like a Timex. Well, that's perfectly in the acceptable range for accuracy for that watch. So just keep this into mind. If accuracy is important to you, look at quartz, or just don't get into mechanical watches at all. Have the right expectations here. So now for this next one here, we have thinking that an affordable watch, or really any watch, is going to appreciate in value and be an investment. Now, I don't want to say that this is not possible. There are watches that will appreciate in value, but 98 to 99% of the watch market, if you're talking about everything from designer watches all the way up to the most luxury independent brands, I would say 98% are going to act more like the car market than they are going to be other forms of investment. Meaning that once you buy a watch, chances are your watch is going to dip in value immediately. Some of them are going to hold their value more than others, but mostly there are a few brands that are responsible for actually seeing any type of appreciation. And this is also where a lot of people will say, hey, there's a lot more going on. And I have an entire video talking about the ideas of supply and demand with a lot of these luxury products, and just talking about watches as investments in more detail. So I don't want to go into all of it here, but really comes down to the brands that do the best when it comes to just appreciating in value is Rolex, AP, Patek, and then some other independent brands like a Richard Mille and FP Journe. There's also no proof on how this is going to continue as we move forward in the watch market. market. And I am not trying to give investment advice. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I just think people are like looking for, they have this Bitcoin type of mentality where everything's seen as like an investment now. You got NFTs, Bitcoin. I'm looking where to put discretionary income. Where can I start investing and making extra money? Watches seem like a great thing. I just don't think people really understand that it's just not really the case. Watches, yes, you can make money with certain ones, but it's just not really the realities. It's very rare, and it's something that when you're early stages, it doesn't make that much sense. You're basically buying penny stocks, especially when you're talking about that affordable end. No affordable watch is gonna start out of nowhere become worth $20,000 in like a short period of time. That just does not happen. So keep all of this into context, and also consider that if you're trying to move on, say you're even trying to sell a watch, like something appreciates, say, like 25%. Well, are you going to be able to sell it yourself? Typically, you're going to have a reputation as a seller to sell it at the going market rate, because there's going to be established dealers that are going to be able to mark things up to that market price. Most cases, you're not going to see that premium. So factoring all that in, maybe you have to use a third-party service to actually sell it, where there's going to be selling fees. At the end of the day, it's probably not going to even be a profit-generating activity when you factor all those costs in, and just having the difficulty of somebody that's going to trust you to buy it from you. So just keep all of this into context. This is something, I just get questions about this all the time, and if there's one question that annoys me the most, it's talking about just watches as investments. But you know what? I think we've all kind of perpetuated this idea in a way. The market has perpetuated this with just the certain circumstances that have just unfolded in the last several years. But that's my take on that. This is something I certainly would just dismiss, and do not make this mistake in thinking that your affordable watch, or really any watch, is going to appreciate like crazy in value. Now, this next one might seem obvious, but whenever I show somebody a watch for the first time that they're really not into watches in general, one thing that they always just really focus on is the strap or the bracelet that is attached to the watch. I remember one of my college roommates said, "I like the Apple Watch because I can change my strap." And it made me realize that I don't think a lot of people recognize that you can change out your strap when you're looking to buy a watch. One thing I'll just say here is I think you have to develop a expectation and almost a ability to visualize how a watch could change with a different strap on it. This will come in like two different phases. One is, okay, just understanding like how would that look with a NATO strap? How would that look with a different leather strap and a different style? Also maybe factoring in how does the structure of the lugs and where the strap would maybe actually fit within those lugs factor into the case profile. Do they have longer lugs? Like, how can you visualize how a strap would look on an additional watch? I just bring this up because I think a lot of people, I remember just doing a video about just showing some people like a Blancpain, and it was on a NATO strap. Like they said, "Oh yeah, I like the watch, but then, hey, I don't really like the NATO strap that's on it." And that was like the number one thing that got in the way of them saying like it's a good watch versus a bad watch. And this is something that I think when you're early on, maybe you don't consider fully, like how can you have that visualization to see whether or not this watch could work for you if it did come with something else, or you're able to have some creativity to express it in a different way than what's coming from the factory. For number 4 here, pretty basic, but I think this is huge when you're early on, is buying impulsively. Whenever you start to develop a new passion, it's very easy to get caught up in just spending a lot of money all at once, and you feel like you have to just develop this taste and just keep going and have all this experience in a very short period of time. Excitement can create impulsiveness when it comes to buying, and this could be a really difficult thing to overcome as time goes on. A couple things that happen, your tastes are just going to change, so you end up just buying so much when maybe your knowledge level is not where it should be to be able to make these decisions in a proper way, to just know your really personal leanings when it comes to what you want out of a watch. And you have all these watches that you don't really like, and then you're stuck in this situation where I don't really know how to move on from them, and like I don't really know where to go from here, and you have all this confusion around your collecting journey. I think you're especially susceptible to this in the early stages because you can't sometimes rationalize buying a more expensive watch in these stages, so you just think, okay, I'm just gonna buy more. And when you buy more, then it just creates these impulsive, easy decisions, because you can, in some cases, do that financially responsibly, and it just starts to create this hoarding mentality in a way, and you just kind of will buy things based on whatever looks cool in the moment. You don't sleep on decisions, you just go ahead and purchase anything in sight that looks cool to you. I think knowing that your taste will change, and then also just understanding the idea that refinement in a great collection only comes after you exercise patience. Number 5, having a limited or just unstructured way of looking at dimensions and knowing what works for you. So what I usually do, and I've definitely learned a lot more with just my personal taste, my range of sizes that work well for me has definitely expanded as I've been able to handle more and more watches over the years. But it was always good and helpful for me to be able to try a watch, make that mistake, and it's always great to make this mistake without having to actually buy it at a really extreme premium, to really understand your watch size and your preferences for your wrist size. Now, I have a whole video on this subject where I go into details and like things to consider, so I don't want to go into all of this. But since more people are going to buy watches online, and I think this is going to continue to expand in the coming years, you really want to know what your preferred sizes are. And some just recommendations I would have is just look at your collection, look what fits you well. Think of things like dial to bezel ratio, lug to lug. Also think about the actual watch itself and what features or what is it really its intended purpose. A Flieger watch should wear different than a dress watch. All of this helps build that context around what your preferred dimension set is going to be. I think it's good to keep an outline on what you prefer, but also don't be so stringent here. Keep it a bit fluid, understand the things you like, you don't like, and test out different things within your own collection, or just be that guy. Go to the store with some calipers and just try some things on, see what you like and you don't like, and figure out the sizes of those watches, or try things on in store and then go on the internet and just kind of cross-reference like, hey, that fit really well. That's the size dimension set for that. I'd probably be able to buy that or maybe something similar and really enjoy it. Use this, get those data points, figure out what you like, and don't just go crazy and make a ton of mistakes and just buying something that maybe isn't really just meant for you. Now for our final point, we have buying to be accepted and part of the community. Now, I am well aware of the snobbery and just sometimes the intense nature of many collectors and how they're maybe not the most welcoming people at times, but I like to say just ignore those people. And I think at the end of the day, you have to buy what you want. And you can't get really caught up in this idea that there's like this watch that's like a rite of passage to become a collector that you have to own, or you need to have a certain type of collection that is correct, or you need to own one of everything, or I need more watches just to be a collector. This is all nonsense, and you really don't need to even think about this any further than, hey, I like this, I want to buy this. That's really what it's all about. There's no one watch that's going to be like, hey, I'm part of the club now, and hey, look at me, guys. That just doesn't happen. I remember when I was first getting into collecting, I just bought an SKX because, hey, everybody's got an SKX. That's just what you do when you collect watches, right? Well, no, you don't need to buy any type of watch. There are going to be those hype pieces that if you like them, absolutely go for them. If you like an SKX, if you like a PRX, you like some other Seiko watches and some Hamilton khaki fields, like just go for those watches. If you enjoy them, you think you can really utilize it, then go for it. But otherwise, I just wouldn't put any more weight to this concept. And it's really interesting because for me, watches are so much an expression of individuality, but as you get into watch collecting, a lot of people just like the same things. And it's almost like a huge exercise of groupthink, where I think the better thing to do is just the shared point should be enthusiasm, not the watches you decide to collect. If they just so happen to overlap with other people and what they like, that's fine. But just make sure you're making those decisions based on what you like, what you're interested in at the time. Don't hold so much weight and be hard on yourself if you maybe change your mind in the future, but just keep all this into context. I think you'll be a happier collector as an end result. But all right, guys, those are 6 mistakes and misconceptions that I think new watch buyers make, and I just wanted to kind of mention and call attention to so that you can avoid them, because I certainly have been guilty of several of these in the past. If you guys found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. That really does help. Is there another thing that I have not mentioned here that you would also just maybe put on somebody's radar as they're starting to get into this for the first time of just watch collecting? I'd love to see comments down there below, and I think that'd be helpful for other people that stumble on this video. Also, be sure to check out TeddyBaldassarre.com, full authorized dealer of 30 brands, quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all of our new products, and also have a great pre-owned section as well with new products coming in every single week. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I'll see you all very soon.